Hello everyone, welcome to A Clear Perspective. I'm Serene. Glad to see you again. Let's continue from where we left off last week. Trump's impeachment was last weekend's most watched drama. Of course, the final result was not surprising, but there was still some twists and turns throughout the process. Let's dive into it. On the first day of the debate, Bruce Castor's performance was surprisingly disappointing. He talked for a long time but didn't seem to know what he's talking about. However, the 9 impeachment managers of the Democratic Party were incomparably worse due to their lack of ethics. The Democrats blatantly edited the footage from January 6 and forged a timeline that frames Trump for inciting the crowd at the Capitol. They then shamelessly presented this video as evidence on February 9th, the second day of the debate. Everyone was left dumbfounded by these allegations. Thankfully, Trump's lawyers made fantastic rebuttals on Saturday. They took just over 3 hours to defeat their opponents. In particular, attorney Michael Van der Veen debunked the prosecution's doctoring of evidence in a simple but powerful way and exposed their attempts to frame Trump. On Monday, after the impeachment was over, attorney Van der Veen was interviewed by Leonard Zach, a CBS reporter. Attorney Van der Veen said,
"The prosecutors in this case doctored evidence. They did not investigate this case, and when they had to come to the court of the Senate to put their case on, because they hadn't done any investigation, they doctored evidence. The American people should not be putting up with this. They need to look at who these House managers were and look to see whether these are the folks they want representing them."
The reporter tried to downplay the doctored evidence by clarifying that it included the addition of a Twitter verification, the alteration of the timestamp of the tweet, and the selective editing of the video. The attorney fired back, quote, "That's not enough for you?" He also said the media needs to start telling the truth. They are trying to divide this country, and it's not all right to doctor even a tiny bit of evidence. Van der Veen was clearly irritated at this point. He continued,
"And when they were caught, they didn't say anything about it. They didn't even try to come up with an excuse about it. And that's not the way our prosecutors or our government officials should be conducting themselves. And the media shouldn't be letting them get away with it either."
When Van der Veen was done, he threw away the microphone and left. His speech vividly described the current state of politics in America. One side falsifies facts at will. Even when exposed, they didn't care and had no shame. The other side is trying to restrain their anger while speaking the truth. As we've said earlier, the final result was not surprising, and the few outlining Republicans could not change the result. But the far left has done a frightening amount of damage to America, as demonstrated by the impeachment trial. Many people are shocked by how nonchalant and shameless the left has been. For example, Trump was accused of inciting insurrection by using terms such as fight and fight like hell. But they forgot that Biden used these terms too. Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren has said the same thing over 50 times. Likewise, Vice President Harris used these words almost 70 times. But even as these baseless accusations were debunked, the final vote remained almost identical to the pre-debate vote. The only difference was one more Republican legislator defected. What does this tell us? The 57 members of Congress who voted for the impeachment don't care about evidence. It's not like they can't distinguish the truth. Van der Veen said his team pointed out 3 instances where the prosecutors doctored evidence. The other side didn't raise any objections. However, these senators still supported the impeachment, no matter how much they make a fool of themselves. they will still try their best to impeach Trump. In other words, they have lost their conscience. They would do anything to achieve their goal. Just like the CBS reporter, who was completely unconcerned about the doctored evidence, she spoke of it almost dismissively. This is exactly how the Chinese Communist Party works. When the party gives an order, it has to be carried out unconditionally. Likewise, false evidence will be created even if no real evidence was found. This is a crime. If this happened in criminal court, the party submitting falsified evidence would lose right away and face a perjury investigation. But we have witnessed such a scandal played out in the Senate, the highest political body in the United States. The party that falsified evidence acted as if it was righteous and claimed it was done to protect democracy. There are three takeaways from this. The first is that the radical left has made any anti-Trump ideals the pinnacle of political correctness. We can see this from the recently fabricated evidence and how election agencies cheated to ensure that Trump didn't get elected. This is how communist political purges begin. Once they have a target, anything can be charged against the person and anything can be used to crack down on the target. Whether it was the anti-right campaign or the Cultural Revolution. Why did the Chinese people turn a blind eye to the unimaginable inhuman persecution methods? It seemed that everyone thought it was normal. It was because the entire society had formed an absolute sense for political correctness. False accusations, murder, and arson are justified if it is needed by the party. The United States still maintains a legal structure on the surface because of its deeply grounded traditions, but we can already see that it's falling into the hands of the radical left. The legislators and the leftist media have demonstrated a collective ideology of criticizing and demonizing anyone. Secondly, Biden has stressed that he is the president of all Americans and that his speeches repeatedly echo ideas about unity, not division. Despite that, the left cruelly attacks Trump and his supporters. Trump has had numerous business contracts cancelled. Banks refused to give him loans, and even his residency at Mar-a-Lago underwent a legal review by the local government. Even Michael Van der Wijn was threatened. Van der Wijn's home in Pennsylvania was vandalized with traitor graffitied on his driveway. He received over 100 death threats, and his family was threatened as well. We all know that the Biden administration has stated that they will be cooperative with the CCP, even though it is the most significant threat to national security. Yet, it's so ruthless towards a former president who merely had different political views. They have not made any attempt to cooperate or to de-escalate the conflict. Is this normal? One of the unique characteristics of communism is that it is far more ruthless towards its own people than to foreign enemies when struggling for power. Why impeach a president who has already left office? They've said themselves that it was to prevent Trump from running for office again. In other words, they are using illegal means to maintain power. After seeing this, I am not optimistic about Trump helping take back Republican control of the House in the 2022 midterm elections using normal procedures. The Democrats certainly will not hesitate to use illegal means to win the election again. The third takeaway is the double standard placed on speech. As we mentioned earlier, Trump was charged with inciting violence for saying "fight to the end" and "fight like hell." This phrase is actually very common in political language. The Democratic Party has used it before, and Ted Cruz claimed almost all of the senators have said those words before. In other words, the same phrase can be said by the left and is be considered positive energy or politically correct. When Trump uses it, it becomes anti-democracy or hate speech. This double standard has almost become the norm. The term anti-democracy has become the left's all-purpose weapon to combat political dissidents. Speaking of double standards, there was a story from a couple days ago that got a lot of attention. The Rescue California petition to recall Governor Newsom officially reached 1.5 million signatures on February 10th. But on February 14th, the media suddenly reported that Governor Newsom has asked for a signature match, throwing out signatures that do not match exactly. As we all know, California had a rejection rate of only 0.6% in the 2020 presidential election. The signature audit of mail-in ballots can be described as a complete lie. Now that the target has changed, Newsom certainly wants to conduct a strict signature audit. Again, this double standard is very familiar to those who have experienced the CCP rule and its dirty tactics. What the far left have done in America is not new. Almost all of it can be found in China. It can be said that the 2020 U.S. general election was a copy of the Venezuela election. The impeachment trial is a sign that the far left is rapidly aligning themselves with the CCP. Next, I want to discuss the latest news on the World Health Organization team that visited China. The team held a press conference in Wuhan last week, where their speech was strictly censored by the CCP. When the team left, Peter Ben Imbarak, a scientist on the team, told CNN that, quote, "The virus was circulating widely in Wuhan in December 2019, which is a new finding." Other than that, there are three major points that we have learned from Imbarak's interviews. First, the disease could have hit an estimated 1,000 plus people in Wuhan that December. 2. The team broadened the type of genetic material that they examined. They found that in December 2019, there were already 13 different genetic sequences of SARS-CoV-2. 3. The CCP refused to supply the team with the thousands of samples collected by the Wuhan Blood Donor Bank, which dated back to over 2 years ago. The CCP also denied access to some other biological test samples that might have proven useful to them. Back in December 2019, the World Health Organization (WHO) estimated that more than 1,000 people were infected that month. This estimate was based on the amount of confirmed cases, which only totaled 174 at the time. The CCP refused to provide raw data on those cases, giving the WHO only a summary of the analysis. Why would the raw data be important? Because almost half of the 174 cases are not connected to the seafood market. If we were to trace that half, what would the data point to? Rather, what are they trying to hide? Furthermore, 13 strains of the virus were already established in December. This indicates that it is likely the virus has been spreading in Wuhan before December. Analyzing the changes in the virus genetic makeup can help us find the origin of the virus. However, Imbarak, as the lead investigator for the WHO team, declined to draw conclusions about what the 13 strains could have meant for the disease history before December. The only reasonable explanation for this is external political influence. The CCP denied access to the blood samples and has even discarded many of them. Testing these blood samples can also help us determine how many people were actually infected with the CCP virus in the fall of 2019. But since such evidence would undermine their efforts to push the blame onto other countries and institutions, it's no surprise that they have been actively trying to hinder the progress in these investigations. Lastly, we would like to remind our friends again that our platform may be restricted on social media. Click the link in the description below to register your email. In case of any unexpected disruptions, we will email you our latest updates. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.